Now, when I think of world mission, I remember the words of Jesus, go into all the world and make disciples. And I capture that sense there. And I'm always glad to see people in the modern world who are responding to that Great Commission in all kinds of ways. Now, my guest today is Colin Scott from Global Mission Partners, an organisation that goes into the world and partners with others there. We're delighted to welcome you, Colin.
Thanks for the invitation, Keith.
So, tell us a little bit more. Right, what is it really all about?
Well, as you say, in the modern world, our mode of operation is really to work with partners in countries across the world and to try and listen with them to God and sense where God is calling them, and for us then to get alongside them to follow through in the direction they feel called to. So our friends in Bangladesh in the hills there, for example, felt called to reach out to the diverse communities that they're amongst, and so they're trekking through the bush to reach new communities. And they discovered when they were doing that those communities didn't have toilets, and so now, as well as their evangelistic outreach program, there's a sanitation program happening right alongside that.
Yeah, it's very much a Churches of Christ operation that you're involved in, and it's the word and deed works for you, doesn't it? Because that's what you're about.
Well, that's right. Global Mission Partners does, if you like, both of those things. There's an evangelistic and church planting and training arm that reaches out with God's word, and then there's a community development arm that's putting, I guess, very practical legs on the gospel and demonstrating God's love to people.
Just in a sentence, some of the places that you work.
So we're in 10 countries across the Pacific, Asia, and in Africa as well. All places that we have a relationship with, some from the days when we sent missionaries to places, and some more recently where people from those countries have come to Australia, been involved in our churches and said, hey, here's an opportunity where you could go back and be involved in South Sudan. So why do you work with Mission Partners? Why don't you just bomb it with all kinds of skills that we can bring from Australia and America and Britain and all? Why do you work with partners? Well, we believe that the mission in Bangladesh belongs to the Christians in Bangladesh. And as Australians, our calling is to get alongside them and to follow through with the things that God's called them to. And I guess the richness of that for us is that we can have a mutual and warm relationship with those communities, and we can learn from them about the way that they're following Jesus and using that to sharpen our own discipleship.
So do you bring back thoughts, inspirations that you meet out there?
Well, I'm very fortunate in my job that I get to work between the two communities. So I'm in touch with our partners all around the world and visiting them, and then I come back and I'm visiting churches in Australia, and so kind of the middle person between those two. And we encourage our churches to actually know our partners face to face. And so churches often make visits to a community or a ministry that they're partnering with. So one group from Nowra that's doing that has been several times to Fiji now, and they talk about it as it's like visiting family. They say we know people, we're loved there, and we really just love spending time together.
How many programs are you running at any one time?
There'd be about 20 development programs and a similar number of training programs and evangelistic programs in different places.
Now, a question I always ask people when they're involved in work on a mission field is, how do you ensure that the people locally are accountable and you're accountable on both sides to what you've agreed to do?
Oh, as an agency, we're part of ACFID, the Australian Council for International Development. So they've got a very helpful code of conduct that's quite thorough and goes through all the different areas that you might think about: your finances, your communication, your promotion, your governance, child protection and safeguarding. And so that gives us all some very rigorous and appropriate standards to work with and so we work with those with our partners and find ways to implement those things in the places and contexts that they're working in.
How do you ensure that they're also accountable resources that you give to them?
Oh, well, that's really part of the package there. So there are a whole heap of accountability measures in that code of conduct that we would implement.
Right.
As I say, I guess our own version of those and something that works for the context our partners
Just
working
to finish, what motivates you?
God has been very good to me all of my life, and I mean, part of following Jesus is just wanting others to follow Jesus as well, and finding every possible way to make that happen. And it's just a privilege to be available for that work across the world, and to see and to be invited into communities, to eat with people, to be invited into their homes and to hear about what God's doing in their lives and to share in that.
Colin, thanks for sharing with us. It's lovely to hear of organisations that are taking seriously the Great Commission in real terms today. And God bless you in the work that you do. And I'm just delighted that you've come and shared with us today.